What would it do for you and your family to make 6 figures in the next 12 months? How would that make you feel? But some remain vulnerable.
So what do they learn in the training?
There is a solution. Self-reliance is a core value of being an American. Once you learn how to make 6 figures listing luxury homes, your world changes. No boss, your own schedule. It's empowering.
12 sessions, 6 figures, 12 months. What would it do for you in your life? How would that make you feel?
Once you learn how to thrive on your own, life becomes a lot more fun.
Yeah!
Welcome back to the training, everybody. This is week 4, Dominant Listing Agent. Hope you had a great week. And before we get into becoming a successful listing agent, let's quickly review your action list from week 3, the Buyer Whisperer. You should have been calling all active buyers and then continue calling contacts in your network. You should have if you have contacts that you've not uploaded to your CRM, you should keep on doing that until you get your CRM and your network really up to date. Do at least one drop by each day, preferably in the afternoon, and then follow up and write personal notes to those people. And we wanted you to download the sample pre-list documents on our online resource center and get familiar with them, and print out the for sale by owner and expired scripts, because we're going to get into those scripts today. So the definition we're using here for a dominant listing agent is the go-to agent for your contacts and your list of relationships, basically top of mind consciousness. A dominant listing agent can also deliver a very persuasive listing presentation, and if you follow our roadmap with a great work ethic, you can make significant annual income. Why listings? Simply because that's where the money is. Specifically, the more listings you have, the more agents you have out there in the field selling your listings while you prospect for more. This type of strategy will help you with geometric growth. And also, the best buyers come from your own listings that inquire about them without being represented by a real estate agent. So it has a multi-level positive effects. The core asset of a successful listing agent is their list of contacts, their network of contacts in their database. That database is their prized possession and actually produces cash flow by generating referrals. The key skills of a dominant listing agent include excellent in marketing and prospecting skills, excellent presentation skills. They're organized and they understand the importance of time blocking their prospecting phone calls every business morning. Does this sound like you? That you can't wait to call, connect, and bond and build and keep calling and connecting your list of relationships? Because the dominant listing agent lives for the next deal 24/7. They love making deals. Let's take a look at some attributes of a dominant or successful listing agent. They understand the metrics of success, like a batting average in a baseball game. They're students of marketing and deal making. They're typically prolific readers of how-to and business books. They handle rejection professionally. They're self-confident, energetic, and ambitious. And most importantly, they have grit. They understand that they have to be persistent and tenacious to be successful. This may seem obvious, but this is something that we forget from time to time. Let's define what a real seller is. It is somebody who is sufficiently motivated to go through the challenges of marketing and selling their home in order to make a move. It is not somebody that just wants a market analysis just to get an idea of what their home is worth. A real seller is somebody that's in motion, has made the decision, and is willing to go through all the effort to work with you as their partner to close a successful transaction. So let's take a look at some downsides to working with sellers. They're not many, but here they are. You're the messenger, so you have to be a whisperer. What I mean by that is you have to have the mindset of speaking strategically with sellers to get them to be motivated to help you conclude a successful transaction. But sometimes when you deliver bad news, they want to kill the messenger, so you have to be skilled at handling that. It can be a tense relationship from time to time, particularly for listings that aren't selling. Sellers are often emotionally tied to their home, so you need to know that going in. You have to invest in marketing prior to the close of escrow, so there's a financial investment with regard to listings. The good news is the more you know about our business and follow our training, there's actually not a large expenditure even for luxury homes if you do things correctly. I'll show you how to syndicate an international campaign with very little upfront costs. You have to show the property yourself for luxury listings unless you have an assistant who can help you do the showings. Typically, luxury homes do not want a key box on the property. They just want showings by appointment. So you have to build that into your scheduling. So now let's look at some upsides to working with sellers, and they are many. This is where the big money is. You control inventory the more listings you have. You have significant leverage. Your listings work for you while you're out there getting more listings. And as we mentioned, it's the best way to meet real buyers. And it helps you get your brand out in the marketplace. So here are some key insights that will help you. Use the word move instead of sell. There are specific reasons for that. When people think about their next move, they don't understand or calculate in days on the market, getting a home in escrow, how long escrows take to close. Lenders can delay the escrow. They think about when they actually want to physically move. So use that terminology and it'll help you clarify things with the seller. Don't refer to it as your listing. A listing is an internal, inside real estate term. To the seller, it's their home. So you want to stay away from using inside terms. Many people don't even understand what MLS means. So when you're talking about putting it on the market, refer to it as the multiple listing service. If you only satisfy their financial needs, you get a check. But if you satisfy their emotional needs, you will gain an advocate and have referrals for years to come. And when you do a great job and nurture the connection consistently, they'll become emotionally attached to you because you've done something so important for them. So let's take a look at an overview, what I call a tactical approach to a listing. Number one, you have a question and answer session that could be both on the phone and in person. And we'll give you the dialogue shortly. The pre-list stage. The pre-list stage is anything that goes on really before the actual listing presentation. The pre-list is often when you preview the house, provide them a CMA, you're physically there. And you should have sales collateral, which we call the pre-list kit, with you, and that's a leave behind. Then the most important is the listing presentation itself, and then being skilled at closing on the listing presentation and getting a residential listing agreement signed. That's step 4. Once you have the listing, you need to work on setting expectations, particularly as it relates to price. You want to manage the escrow and be the center of the storm. There's a lot of conflicts that can occur with escrow, so you want to use your negotiating skills that we'll talk about in a future training in the escrow phase. Price reduction, step number 7. That connects with and is closely related to setting the expectations with regard to real market price and market feedback, and then getting the escrow actually closed, which is obviously when you get paid. That's step 8. So let's dive into the Q&A, step 1 of a tactical approach to a listing. And it's really important you start to understand the elements of the Q&A. The first question is, how did you hear about me? Why would we ask that? Because a dominant listing agent is very in tune with their metrics. They want to know what's working with their prospecting and marketing, or referrals, etc. So they want to know where this person is coming from. Obviously, if you already know that, you would not need to ask that. But if you don't, it's something you want to learn right away. You'll notice in the top right of the screen, we have our repeat, praise, acknowledge, ask. You will have noticed through this training, I remind you of that all the time because that's how you speak to clients. So let's move on here to please tell me about your home. And this is a question that you'll see in the expired script, the for sale by owner script. You can use it virtually with any home seller. You can use it even if you're in the home in person because you want them to tell you what they think is special about the home. No matter what the response is, you come back with something like, it sounds like a nice home. Why did you decide to sell it? When you phrase it that way, it's disarming, as opposed to, why are you selling your home? That's basically almost sounds like an attack, and you will put up their defenses if you word this question the wrong way. So this language, this dialogue has been refined in the field over thousands of interactions. So I suggest you really add this to your repertoire. Sounds like a nice home. Why'd you decide to sell it? It almost sounds like we are trying to talk them out of selling their home. It disarms them, and what it helps us discover is motivation. Then we go on to what's important about selling your home, or what's important about moving to Seattle, and what will that do for you? So just in this dialogue, we've basically included our 3 steps of eliciting values. You will see references to eliciting values or probing for motivation in many sections of this training because it is absolutely critical to forming rapport and bonding with your clients. It's very strategic for a listing agent to know what's going on behind the scenes because nobody sells their home just for the fun of it. There are serious and important reasons why they've decided to take this action. So here's the bare elements of the 3 steps. What's important, what will that do for you, and how will that make you feel? Now, you have to be careful and use some common sense because if you don't know this person well, you don't just blurt out how will that make you feel. So you have to be elegant and strategic as to how you filter these questions into your dialogues. But it's important you understand the 3 elements here. But let me give you an example. What's important about selling your home? And they say, well, we're downsizing. Oh, great, downsizing. Okay, terrific. And what will downsizing do for you exactly? And they may say something like, I'm tired of cutting this huge lawn, or maintaining this big house, or cleaning a 5,000 square foot house, whatever their answer is. And then you can roll right into, oh man, how would it make you feel when you don't have to do all that lawn work every weekend? So when you phrase it in something that makes sense in natural dialogue, it becomes just part of the conversation. But what you're looking for is what's really driving them, because you'll use their values and this motivation to frame future conversations. Then we're going to go into some additional questions that are more data related. So we have motivation, which is eliciting the values and motivation, and then just factual information. Have they sold a home before? Have them tell you about that experience, which could also give you motivation as well. But you want to know the mortgage information. Are there any other decision makers, etc. So these are key questions that you should not be afraid to ask. Particularly, are you interviewing other agents, and what are you looking for in a listing agent? Because you may be prepared to do a listing presentation that is totally data-based about your performance and you getting top dollar and all that. And what's driving them is they want somebody they can trust. So, and they tell you that we've had a bad experience with a past agent who we didn't think was honest. And so you want to understand what's going on under the surface prior to giving a listing presentation. So their answers to these questions as to how they feel, what their motivations are trigger words. For example, as we just discussed, if they say we had a bad experience with an agent we didn't think we could trust, trust is a trigger word in that example. And so you want to identify in your natural dialogue prior to giving a listing presentation. This could be on the phone, in a pre-list, preview, additional phone calls you have with them. And at the moment you sit down to do the listing presentation, you could have these conversations and start to think about what is jumping off the page, so to speak, in terms of a trigger word or motivational factors. So let's take a look at a step-by-step to the listing. You make outbound calls to qualify leads. You connect with them by meeting them in person. Going to their home with or without an appointment. You would go to a home without an appointment if you can't reach a for sale by owner and expired, for example. You leave the pre-list package behind, or you can mail it to them ahead of a listing presentation. You preview the home, proceed with the pre-list strategy, and then segue to the listing presentation. And you keep calling to set up and confirm a listing appointment. You do the listing presentation and then you close. So we've outlined a tactical approach. Here's a little bit more detail within each of those steps. So you've heard me use the term pre-list package. Why would we use such a thing, and what is it? A pre-list package, the purpose of it is to differentiate yourself from your competition, make a lasting impression, and it's a key marketing sales collateral piece that works for you in your absence. And it can be a very important weapon in your arsenal. And in particular, you want to have something in that pre-list package that relates to risk reversal. I recommend you have two pre-list packages. One is a really short one that could be just a pre-list one-sheet summary with some major bullet points on it. And the other one would be in some type of folder. We like the silver or black folders that you can buy at Staples. That have a left and right to them. You can put a cover letter, etc. on each side. And what the full pre-list package should include or can include is a personal cover letter printed on your stationery. Now, I recommend you just create your own stationery in Microsoft Word or your Apple Documents, and then use that and print it out on a color laser, which you can get now for a few $100. I recommend you include a performance guarantee, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. We've got some samples of these documents in the Online Resource Center. Questions advising them how to interview a realtor, a page about you. That's your about, your resume or your CV. We have a couple ideas on including an article about merchandising their home or staging, HDR photography, international syndication. But you can use whatever you want in this pre-list package, but it should be basically key documents that help you differentiate yourself. We have learned from experience that the performance guarantee is the most powerful single piece of marketing material you can include in a pre-list. So here's an example of a one sheet or a single pre-list. This is obviously a bit dated, but it gives you an idea of something that can work for you in the past. So we have the performance guarantee, a small image of that, and a few other things. But again, you don't. It's not intended that you just copy this, but it'll give you kind of a roadmap to create your own. What is risk reversal? Risk reversal is a marketing technique where you offer your potential customer, your client, the opportunity to have the risk of the transaction be on your shoulders and not theirs. When a home seller is considering hiring a listing agent, there's a lot of risk there. It can be their most valuable asset that they're entrusting you with. So whether they explicitly talk about risk, it's there. And a very effective technique you can use to reverse the risk is offering to reduce your commission if you don't perform. This is rarely used in our business, and here's an example. I'll sell your home in 59 days, or I'll reduce my commission up to $5,000. This is a very powerful marketing piece that jumps out of a pre-list kit and will help you get listings, particularly when you're in a very competitive situation where they're interviewing 3 or 4 listing agents, because real estate agents are notorious for a lot of fluff. I'm number one in my office, I'm this, I'm that. It's just white noise to consumers. In this case, you are putting your money where your mouth is, and sellers will appreciate it and look at you differently. So the certificate, you can buy the certificate stock at Staples and then print it in your color printer, and that's what goes in your pre-list kit. But you have an addendum, which we have samples of in the Online Resource Center, that you bring with you at the listing appointment, which outlines the terms of the risk reversal performance guarantee offer. And you can have a sliding scale of what the commission reduction would be based on the sales price of the home. Previewing a home is an art, because basically the listing presentation starts in the preview. You're not actually doing the PowerPoint slide, but you are interviewing for the listing. Make no bones about it. That process starts in the preview. You want to express that you love the home. Even if it's a beat up fixer, you're excited about possibly selling that to an investor. So it doesn't really matter the condition of the home. You have to be excited about the prospect of getting them top dollar. You just can't wait. This is the mindset. You just can't wait to share your great ideas with the seller to get them top dollar. So you want to be very, very exuberant about, you can't wait to sit down with them and share your ideas. That's a segue to actually sitting down and going through the PowerPoint listing presentation. Previewing a home is a great opportunity to continue to probe for motivation using your dialogue on eliciting values. And you're constantly looking for opportunities to segue to the listing presentation. So you'll notice I have some segue dialogue in here for you. Do you have a couple of minutes for me to show you some ideas about what I can do to get you top dollar? That is what we call a segue to a listing presentation. And once they agree to sit down, you go through the entire listing presentation, even if it takes you an hour. Let them stop you. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this work where they're thinking you're only going to talk for 5 minutes. They get enthralled in your listing presentation, and you're allowed to complete the listing presentation. And then they say, oh, you know what? This is what I'm looking for. Let's just do it. And you get a signed listing presentation during a preview of which the seller wasn't intending to execute the agreement. So hopefully this makes sense to you and you'll be aggressive in doing this. The escrow control file is an Excel spreadsheet that is in the Online Resource Center, and as you can see by this example, of which you can't read obviously here, it's very, very detailed. And it is basically a checklist of steps you go through with your transaction coordinator to get an escrow complete and closed. You can show your client your escrow control file on your laptop or pad to show them how organized you are. Because it's so lengthy, it basically reinforces how complicated an escrow can be and can help you justify your commission. So let's review some fundamental dialogues for a dominant listing agent. Clearly the campaign and 1, 2, 3 dialogue are daily, if not hourly, if not minute by minute dialogues you want to continue to use for the rest of your career. You want to get used to saying that's fine or okay, great, no matter what the response is. Remember, repeat, acknowledge or praise, and ask the next question. Your inflections are very important. you'll notice these little marks in the for sale by owner and expired scripts that are horizontal line with a mark going down after it. That is a down inflection as opposed to an up inflection. So let me give you two inflections, and you can hear the difference. It sounds like a nice home. Why did you decide to sell it? That's an up inflection. It sounds like a nice home. Why did you decide to sell it? So that's a down inflection. Down inflections are express authority, and they're basically a subtle command. So when you use an up inflection, you're expressing lack of confidence. So you want to be careful. There are times actually when you will use an up inflection for a reason, but you're going to do it intentionally. For the most part, you want to use down inflections when you really want to press a point and get an answer to a question. So here's another take on the Segue Dialogue. If you have a few minutes, I can show you a couple things I can do for you to get you top dollar. In this case, it's not a question, it's a statement, and you're waiting for body language and a response to determine how aggressively you move forward. Let's talk a little bit about the mindset and strategy working expired, for sale by owner, and internet leads. There are some similarities between them. Urgency is very, very important. You call them on the phone to qualify to determine if there's a potential transaction there. You don't need to heavily sell them or give them some used car salesman pitch on the phone. People get turned off by that. So you're going to use a Q&A with all of these initial phone calls to determine motivation and get some key data to determine whether you should go into the field and meet these people. With respect to expireds and for sale by owners, if they don't answer the phone, you door knock them cold with a pre-list in hand. Why? These are people that have already raised their hand and expressed to the world they want to sell their home. These are key leads for you as a listing agent. So here are some insights regarding for sale by owner and expireds. You show up in person. The deals are made in person. They are not made with email or telephone calls, because people only list their homes with real estate agents they can trust. 3 things you want to know: their motivation, who they'll list with when they do decide to sell or list it, for example, with a for sale by owner, and what price they're asking for the property. You want to stay with them. Tenacity is a key thing here. You want to find out what their first name is. You want to mirror, mimic, and match them in terms of their speed, their tempo, their tone. Your mindset is you really want to know. You're very interested in them and their property. You should be upbeat. You continually use the dialogue structure of repeat, give praise, and ask the next question. And keep in mind, even though these things look a little daunting, both the for sale by owner and the expired scripts are not very long. They're each a single page of dialogue. For sale by owners are selling their home by themselves. For what reason? Well, it's for the money, obviously. They don't want to pay real estate commission, or at least want to save the listing side. When you call them, what do they want to talk about? They want to talk about the house because they're thinking you're a buyer, or they're hoping you're a buyer. They don't want to talk about you, how great a real estate agent you are, or actually even listing with them for the most part. That's not what their mindset is. So the strategy behind a for sale by owner call is probing for information to determine if this is a lead to justify you spending your field time. But understand, a very high percentage of for sale by owners end up listing with a real estate agent. Knowing that, don't believe what they tell you on the phone. They change their mind from one day to the next, because this is an axiom that is actually very true in the marketplace. No way today is listed tomorrow. Another way to think about for sale by owners is the old metaphor, last man standing. In your case, it may be last woman standing, but the point is the same. Tenacity is really paramount to success with FSBOs. It may take 10 phone calls, 5 meetings in person, whatever, to get a listing. But if you're making $30,000, $40,000 on a listing, is it worth it? Of course. So here are some keys to unlocking for sale by owners. Don't argue with them on the phone and try to talk them out of selling the house themselves. You immediately focus on the house and nothing else. This is the icebreaker. They love to talk about how great their house is because they're in the mindset of talking to buyers. So for both the for sale by owner and expired scripts, I suggest you think about these key components of your phone conversations. Match their tone and tempo. Ask questions about the home, repeat and acknowledge, of course. Continue to qualify and attempt to appointment set, but don't push that too hard. So now we're digging into the for sale by owner script. You want to qualify them right away, right up front. I'm calling about the home for sale. Is this the owner? Because you don't want to go into a 10-minute conversation and find out this is Uncle Bob and he's just answering the phone. He's in from Seattle for the weekend. So a professional knows who they're talking to right from the beginning. You introduce yourself and ask them if you could ask them a couple questions about their home. They love talking about the home. So if they jump right back at you and say, I'm not listing it, you can use something like, if I brought you a buyer, could we work together just on that buyer? You want to try to disarm them, make it easy for them to talk to you, and then ask them some specific questions about the property. Do you know the square footage? And then you repeat, acknowledge, and ask the next question. You're still selling it yourself. How would you rate the condition of the home? No matter what they say, repeat, praise, and continue. Is it move-in condition for the buyer? So you can add different questions in here to make this work for you, but you can understand the strategy here. This is a key one at the end. Does it have any unique features? Oh, it sounds like a nice home. Why did you decide to sell it? If you recall, we used that language before. So what I'm doing right in the beginning of this phone conversation, this FSBO script, is disarming them, learning about the house, and probing for motivation, because I want to know if there's a deal here. So some other key questions here about price. Where would they go next? How soon would you have to be there? If you get really good with your dialogues with potential sellers, you can actually extend this to using the 3-step elicitation of values blended in here. In a perfect world, this would be a 1 question and answer phone call with a for sale by owner. And here's the question. If you did not get the offer you're looking for right away and had to list it sometime in the future to get it sold, which agent would you list with? If they don't have an agent, you have a potential opportunity, even if they tell you there's no way they're ever going to list. If they say, my brother Bob lives 2 streets over and he's with Coldwell Banker, that's not a for sale by owner. I'm going to work in the field. So basically, I'm trying to eliminate this lead with this question. And if there's no answer that eliminates the lead for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what they tell you in this phone conversation. You hit them in the field with your pre-list and start developing a relationship. So to conclude the for sale by owner script, we're going to attempt to appointment set and gather some more contact information. But I'm not highly concerned that you even are successful here, because if you've determined this is a lead for the future, you've accomplished your goal with this first phone call. With the expired script, one of the key things we're looking for, as in all conversations, is motivation. And it's a good way to open up an expired phone call with something like this. My name's Scott Farrell with Thrive California, and I didn't get a chance to see her home when it was on the market, but I have a couple of new buyers I'm working with. Can I ask you a couple of questions about your home? Reason I like you throwing that in there is you'll get some of these sellers will say, well, if you're so good, how come you didn't show my home? Thinking that, agents show every home that's on the market, which of course is crazy. So this will disarm them in that regard right away. And then we're going to use questions very similar to get the seller talking about their home. Very similar to the for sale by owner script. So again, the mindset with the expired script is similar to the for sale by owner. Is there a deal here? Potential transaction. And the mindset is that you have something interesting to tell them, almost like a secret. And the dialogue goes as follows. Have you made a decision on the agent to help you get this home sold? The reason I want you to ask that is if they just sat down last night and relisted with the same agent, it may not be reflected on the MLS. So you want to quickly get rid of these expired leads that are no longer leads. And towards the end, you want to appointment set. Now, you should know by now there's something very, very similar, a common link between these scripts, the for sale by owner and the expired, which is there a deal here? And you don't worry too much about selling yourself on the phone because most of the time they won't even remember you. They're getting called by so many agents. You just set them up into your field work. You go see them. If you can appointment set, great. If you can't, you knock on their door cold with a pre-list. On this page are a number of very, very common objections that you're going to hear in the marketplace. And if you're a veteran, you've heard all of these before. The training on the dialogue to handle all of these objections is beyond the scope of this 12 weeks because there's so much content here that we're going to have it in a separate training session for you. The good news is we have dialogue for you to answer all of these very, very effectively. But you need to understand that you do not want to be taken by surprise with any objection. You want to have answers ready. And it doesn't mean you have to memorize pages and pages of dialogue. What you will memorize are trigger words. So, for example, the second objection here is we'll save money by selling it ourselves. So it sounds like a for sale by owner objection. It is. So the trigger word for that is net more. For example, the comeback would be, if I could show you how I could actually net you more money on the day your escrow is closing than even if you sell it yourself, would you consider sitting down with me? So you could reword that in a number of ways, but what you need to understand is what's behind the objection so you can address that issue, and that is the amount of money they're going to make on closing day. And if the response is, if you can net them more, would they consider talking to you further, if that makes sense. So we're going to provide you in a future training with these key trigger words so you can put it in your own words. So here are a few documents that we typically require you to have to take a listing. The agency disclosure document, the AD, the RLA, which needs to include our broker's BRE number, seller's advisory, the SPQ, the PRBS, and if it's a unique sale like a short sale, REO, probate, you would want to have those in there. But you need to study all of your car forms. This is a task that you need to do to be a successful listing agent and keep it current, which is cleaning up your act online. Before sellers hire you, they typically search your name. So if you've got some strange Facebook photos or incomplete LinkedIn profile or websites that don't make you look your best, you want to work on those and get those cleaned up. This is very simple to do and it's just common sense. Here's our action list for dominant listing agent. Number 1, call all the for sale by owners and expired leads in your area daily. If they don't answer, door knock them. Some of you may say, where do I find these leads? Well, you find the expireds in the MLS, and there are numerous for sale by owner services online that can provide you with them on a daily basis so you don't have to search for them yourselves. Those are key services to have in your marketing arsenal. I want you to call all active sellers with an update and start instituting much better communication with sellers if you don't already do so. We'll get into that in the Seller Whisperer training coming up soon. You want to be creating your pre-list documents, writing personal notes to each seller or potential seller. Increase your calls, notes, and drop-bys by now. You should really start ramping those up in the afternoon. And I recommend you create a performance guarantee in color using certificate paper. That's your action list for week 4. We look forward to seeing you next week, and I'll give you a preview of next week here in just a moment. Next week, we'll get into actually doing the listing presentation. We'll discuss the components of a great presentation. We'll provide you with some insights and some dialogues, and focus on how to influence pricing and closing on the agreement. You'll also have the ability to actually download a listing presentation to use in your laptop. See you then. Have a great week.